Hello, everybody. It's me again, your host, C. Pearson, baby. We here for panel number 2. I'm going to need you to start your watch parties. I'm going to need you to hit that share real quick. I'm going to need you to hit that comment button. Say hello. Say good morning. Say good afternoon. Let me know where you at. Your panel gonna start in just a few minutes. And guess what? Today's panel, it's going to examine the romantic practices, the sexual practices, the sexual stigmas associated with Black men in the transmasculine community, baby. Get your friends here. We need to fill these seats. We got some seats in the front row. We got Miami in the building. What's poppin', Braylon? Welcome to the conversation, brother. Come on. We here. Brothers obtaining and navigating dynamic solidarity, baby, also known as bonds. Transmen and Transmasculine Week of Affirmation and Resilience 2022. Welcome into this place, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. To my trans men and transmasculine folks, welcome to this conversation. Come on and have a seat. Where the allies at? Come on and have a seat. Get your paper. Get your pens. Invite your friends. Hit that share button. The panel will be starting shortly, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. But before I bring up this panel, I got a question for you. I have a thought question for you. In 20 words or less, I need you to share your thoughts in the comments. What's your thoughts right now on the sexual health and wellness in trans men and the transmasculine communities? We want to hear from you. We want to read your comments and put them on the screen. Come on. I need to hear from you because we here, baby, for day 2 of the Brothers Obtaining and Navigating Dynamic Solidarity, also known as bonds. Trans Men, Transmasculine Week of Affirmation and Resilience 2022. Hello, everybody. Once again, my name is T. Pearson. I am founder of the T. Pearson Experience, and it is my honor to welcome you into this space and this conversation today. Before I get started, I got to hit you with a few reminders. First, a little quick recap. If you missed yesterday, I'm going to need you to go hit YouTube. I'm going to need you to hit YouTube and check out this panel that we had yesterday. Yesterday, we had some dynamic folks that was on and having a great conversation about the state of trans men and the Transmasculine Union. Click over there on the Bonds YouTube page and make sure you get into it and watch the replay. Also, coming up this weekend, November the 19th is going down, baby. Sips and Cigars at the Costas Rum Bar. It is a networking mixer for transmasculine and trans men only. Tickets are $30, man. Get into it and let's do it. Also coming up this weekend, the Black Trans Joy Brunch, baby, is going down this Sunday from 11 to 3 p.m. at the Chateau Remix. The tickets are live right now on Eventbrite as well as Linktree for bonds. So as you can see, this week is running. We have a panel tomorrow. Oh, man, a panel tomorrow as well about reproductive justice in the trans men and transmasculine community. We got a panel going on then, too, and we need you to register and make sure you're in the building. Now, listen, without further ado, because you've heard enough about me, I need to bring up my big brother. Y'all know him. Hold on. You know I got to have you some music. Y'all know him. He goes by E. Lee Dyer the fourth, baby. He is the co-executive director of this great organization known as Bonds. I need y'all to help me today. Give me the exclusive honor to bring my brother onto the stage. Mr. E. Lee Dyer the fourth, baby. Hello, brother.
Hello. Hello. Hey, welcome and thank you for joining us for the Sexual Health and Transmen and Transmasculine Communities panel. I'm Ely Dyer, the fourth. I go use he, him pronouns, and I'm the co-executive director of Bonds, as well as the co-founder of Bonds. And so today's panel examines the romantic practices, sexual practices, and sexual stigmas trans men and transmasculine communities often face when we talk about sexual health and wellness. We are very excited for the second year of the Trans Men and Transmasculine Week of Affirmation and Resilience. Special thank you to our sponsors and funders, because without y'all, we would not be able to do things like Trans Men and Transmasculine Week of Affirmation and Resilience. So special thank you to Destination Tomorrow, If a Foundation for Radical Possibility, the Transgender Justice Funding Project, Gilead Sciences, Us Helping Us, the National Trans Visibility March, Unspoken Treasure Society, Flux AHF, and the Human Rights Campaign. And thanks to all of you that have responded in the chat to our opening question. And thanks again to those of y'all that are streaming in. So definitely like, share, as much as a space for communities, is also a space too in these panels for allies to come learn more about us. So while we're getting ready for our panelists to come on, let us know your thoughts in the chat. What are you looking forward to learning from this panel? And what are you looking forward to seeing in some of the panelists' responses? So I'll give you a second to go ahead and put that in the chat. All righty. Well, as y'all are putting that into the chat, I want to go ahead and bring our moderator up here. So let me get y'all to give a hand clap and get ready. As we bring to our virtual stage, Mr. Anthony Gutierrez, who will be serving today as our moderator. And I will turn it over to Anthony so he can introduce himself.
Thank you, Lee. Super excited to be here. I have a strong passion for sexual health. As Lee said, my name is Anthony Gutierrez. I use he, him pronouns. I am a community liaison for Gilead Sciences. I cover DC and Virginia. And I've been with Gilead for about 3 years now. But prior to coming to Gilead Sciences, I worked in the HIV space for about 13 years. Doing HIV testing, sexual health. I've worked in Los Angeles and Chicago and in Florida, held a variety of different positions, but my passion really is about sexual health and around stigma and how we reduce stigma and how we empower our community to be fully embodied and fully prideful in who we are and how we show up. So very excited to moderate tonight's discussion. But before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items for today's event. As you see, we are utilizing StreamYard to broadcast this event simultaneously to Facebook as well as YouTube. There is a portion of this panel in which we will solicit questions from the audience. Please type your questions into the chat at any time. Our chat monitors will collect your questions on all platforms so they can be asked to the panelists during the Q&A portion of today's panel discussion. We understand and affirm those who want to remain anonymous. Therefore, when you submit your question, please indicate if you'd like to remain anonymous. Please share this stream in your networks. Share. The more people we get involved, the more robust discussion we can have, the more information we can get out there and uplift our community. Please don't miss the Black Trans Joy Brunch in DC on 11/20 from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Make sure you get your tickets at www.brothersofbonds.org. So those are our beginning remarks. Now let's go to our panelists. The long-awaited discussion. We've assembled an incredible group of folks who will now introduce themselves to our audience. Let's start with Lucky Alexander.
Hey, what's going on? How y'all doing?
Hey, introduce yourself for us.
All right, so I'm not Lucky Alexander.
Right, I was going to come in real quick. for the people that's like, that ain't Lucky, that don't look like Lucky. So
That's
Lucky
2
had
a.m.
an
Ricky.
emergency and couldn't join us right now. So we got our good brother 2 a.m. Ricky on the panel. So I just had to come run. I was running backstage to try to catch you. But we got our good brother 2 a.m. Ricky filling in for our good brother who couldn't make it today.
Perfect. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is 2 a.m. Ricky. I am a recording artist and songwriter. I actually am the first Black trans man to ever become #1 on any music chart. I have a record called What You Want that went #1 with CC Peniston. So, outside of music, what I do is travel, speaking, helping both in front of the camera and behind the scenes with inclusive branding, healthcare for trans men, mental health within the music industry, and just creating conversation on what it means to be trans and develop normalization for trans men in America.
Thank you so much, Sway Ricky. And something I absolutely love is when people use their celebrity, their art to give back to community, because art in and of itself is advocacy, right? Like we can use that to change the hearts and minds of people as well as make them feel good. So thank you, 2 a.m. Ricky. I'm super excited to hear the discussion that we'll be having with you. And next we have Sebastian Smith.
Hey, Anthony, thank you so much. And thank you to all the folks working behind the scenes and in front of the scenes with Bonds for having me be a part of the conversation today. As you stated, my name is Sebastian Smith, or Cy for short. You may hear Cy in community as well. My pronouns are he and him. I am the organizing director at the National Center for Trans Equality, where we do a lot of policy work. So we do a lot of talking to legislators, particularly around the onslaught of anti-trans legislation we've seen over the past few years. And then I am also the executive director at the I Am Human Foundation, and we do all things communities, all things BIPOC trans communities, just trying to make sure we connect our community with any of the resources that they need. And again, I'm so excited to be a part of the conversation today.
Thank you, Sebastian. And once again, like we're going to get all types of advocacy, right? Policy advocacy, artist advocacy. And one of the things I love about our community is the way in which we change our community or society, the hearts and minds, is by braiding all these things together, right? There's not
Absolutely.
one size that fits all. We got to attack it from all different angles. So super excited to have you as part of the panel. And next, let's go to Lane Littlejohn.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Lane Littlejohn. I use they and he pronouns primarily. A couple different titles I use. I identify as a sex worker, a bookkeeper, an accountant, a continuous learner, a liberation chaser, and a disabled partier. Some things that I did previously, I'm currently in the Chicagoland. I just moved back home from Seattle, where I was previously working for a statewide queer law firm and statewide transgender organization, working on like name change policy, healthcare advocacy, jail and prison reform, and running their local support group. And I'm currently bookkeeping. I needed a little bit of a break. But I'm also taking time as part of a DEI task force for an organization called Sleep Consortium, which is dedicated towards research on diseases with hypersomnolence. So for people who are super sleepy, because I have narcolepsy, I've joined the team. So I'm doing a number of things.
I was going to say, Lane, how many people do we have up in there? Sounds like you've lived a lot of lives, wearing a lot of hats. And representing a diversity of our community. So I love to hear all those titles and all of those different ways of showing up, because as we know, our community is not monolithic. And, you know, we have lots of experiences that make up our community, which, which makes it so rich and beautiful. So thank you. And I think we'll have another panelists who will be coming in a bit later. So when they do, we will announce and introduce them. But while I have you three, let's go ahead and start with our discussion. Let's just jump right in. Let me pause right there. Lee, did you want to say anything before we started with our discussion?
No, just have a really great discussion. I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone will be saying.
Awesome. All right. So we all seem to have some level of background, whether it's lived experience, whether it's policy, whether it's artistry, whether it's our passion, whether, wherever we're coming from sexual health, which is our topic today, and sexual expression and experiencing all the joys of it, but also the stigma that often is associated with our identities and our community and the way in which we want to express our sexuality. So with that, I would like to hear from you. What are some of the barriers you've encountered or that you've seen professionally when engaging in and staying in care for transmasculine individuals?
I would say the biggest thing is fetishization. I think that as a community, we lack care and we lack education because people tend to not see us beyond our body and beyond our genitalia. They instantly, I don't know about y'all, but I know one of my first encounters that I often deal with is people asking of what you got between your legs. You got this, you got that, or even being in the doctor's office and trying to need health care and needing to seek some type of care and treatment and having to deal with those type of uncomfortable conversations, even in spaces of seeking medical treatment as well.
And I think that's so important because I used to be in a testing space where we would, test for HIV or test for particular STIs. And I used to tell people we need to be very intentional as to why we're asking certain questions, right? Does it matter someone's, anatomical parts if you're testing for HIV, right? Like it's an HIV test. Do I need to know certain things? And if I don't, why am I asking it, right? And I think that goes into that cultural responsiveness and that cultural responsive care. So any other sort of responses with regards to some of the barriers or that you've encountered, or maybe policy-wise or programmatic-wise that you've experienced when engaging our community?
Anthony, I think you and 2AM Ricky both kind of hit on a bunch of the key things in there too, like the lack of education. We go in and we're often the ones that have to educate our doctors not only on our experiences, but who we are, our sexual our sexual identities and all of those things. So that's a deterrent to us even going to seeking out care. And while we're here to have a necessary conversation about like our sexual and reproductive health, but it's important to know that this also bleeds out into other areas. So if I am not being affirmed at my PCP, at my medical doctor's office, and I'm having all these bad experiences, then I'm probably not going to go to the dentist. I'm probably not going to go to the eye doctor. I'm probably not going to do all of those things that that humans do, right, to take care of themselves, because I'm having so many bad experiences with physicians overall. So that's, a barrier to all of the types of care that we receive, having those multiple bad experiences or those multiple issues with going in, and then we have to train our providers, or we have to be the one to educate our providers, and they don't, express and, even take the initiative to get that education on their own.
So this has come up between both of you in your response. A follow-up question to this is, how would you suggest service providers be more culturally sensitive to the needs and care of transmasculine individuals? What are some suggestions you give, or resources that you would advise them to seek out? Do you have any suggestions or
Sure, I'll jump out there, and I'm sure my co-panelists here have some amazing suggestions as well. But one of the first things is this has been a week of, and will be continue to be a week of, amazing advocates, amazing consultants, people that are doing this work. If you're genuinely interested in affirming the community, if you're an ally, because that's an action word, an ally, then reach into the community and get us to come in and teach those lessons. Think about cultural competency. Yeah, a lot of us are over 101, but if we need to start you at Trans 101, we start there and then we graduate to the next level. But you have to bring us in to lead those conversations because we control our narrative. You can not, no one else can come in and tell our story. So training is part of it. Training and getting the education not only for yourself as a physician or a service provider, but also for your front desk staff. Because a lot of us, that experience starts from the moment I call over the phone to make my appointment. It can make and break our whole experience from the moment I pick up that phone. So even your front desk staff needs to be trained. And so training is one of the first places people can start.
And thank you so much for mentioning the whole system of care, right? I think people sometimes think of, when it comes to training healthcare providers, it's the physician, right? But healthcare providing starts as soon as you enter the building, right? It's the messaging you see on the walls. It's your intake form and how it is, worded. It's your front desk person. It's everything along the way that is part of your healthcare. So I wholeheartedly believe when it comes to training, the whole system needs to be trained. And I think something else that you called out, and I want to really highlight, is that when you're a patient or a client, is not necessarily the time for you to be doing the training, right? Call me when I'm not the patient or the client to come in and do the training, because I think that's sometimes where it becomes really uncomfortable. I'm here to get healthcare. I'm not here to train, but I can come back at a different time and get my coin and train your staff. But I'm not here to do the training right now as I'm seeking help. So I think that's really important too. Don't take advantage of your clients. Be respectful of them, and then lean into having intentional trainings apart from your visit. And anyone want to add?
I was going to say that, and even in doing those trainings, I think it's very important that as a community, our trainings are treated as a necessity and not a burden. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I've been brought in plenty of times to do training that I feel like I'm here because you're making me be here because something's happened. You're trying to do damage control. Somebody not trying to lose their job. Like, we're not the cleanup men. That's not the time that you call us to try to come in. You want to have to bring us in ahead of time. Bring us in and show us that you genuinely care, because that makes a difference too. When you bring in and ask for the training, makes a world of a difference, because as the trainer, as the facilitator, and as the patient, no one wants to go into a space where they feel like they're not really wanted. No one wants to go into the space where I feel like my safety and my healthcare is dependent on me advocating for myself, especially if I'm going into a space that I might not even be in the physical or mental space to speak for myself, right? Because a lot of times when we're going into these facilities, it's beyond just being physically in pain. We're processing things emotionally. We're processing things mentally. We're processing things spiritually. A lot of us go through these situations and we're having medical emergencies with lack of support and lack of community. You know what I mean? So having us come into this space and compensating us fairly and giving us our roses ahead of time. And outside of this week of Trans Awareness Week, because I think it's quite ridiculous that we have a Trans Awareness Week when 365, I'm Black and I'm trans. It don't stop at the end of this week. It don't stop. I don't start remembering people on November 20th. So I think that the biggest thing is we have to take education beyond Trans Awareness Week. We have to take knowledge beyond Trans Day of Visibility and really make this as normal as us teaching our kids their ABCs. Why shouldn't they know how to properly care for themselves? Why should they not know that they have places of community and resources when they know everything else?
Well said. Spoken like a true artist.
Right, I'm like, these guys
I was going to pull you in, man. I was going to pull you in. So
I love listening. Yes, I think especially like, thank you everyone for sharing, because in people sharing, I recognize that like when I had this question, I think I approached it differently. And I think I was thinking more so about like inner community networks of care and like care for each other. And I think like big scope thing is like patriarchy and anti-Blackness, right? Is like what gets in the way overall of like all of us being able to care for each other and for other folks to care for Black men specifically. And I think that like we're in a very difficult position of spending more time trying to avoid being like these men as society has put upon us, or as we have, had not great role models ourselves, rather than giving us the resources or spaces or encouragement to think more and focus on what kind of men we do actually want to become and what positive masculinity looks like. I think even thinking about like specifically trans spaces, I've been in a lot of trans spaces that just at the end of the day are lacking when it comes to their programming for trans men. And when that's half or part of any part of your community, it only makes sense, right? That we're actually trying the hardest to address these issues at home. And one of those things that came to mind is I've seen so many spaces that are like makeup spaces or like makeup lessons for the girls. And I'm always like, honestly, I would love to go to one because I didn't want to touch makeup before I transitioned. Like that was so triggering. I don't know nothing about a brush. I don't know how to blend. I don't know how to do none of that. But now I'm comfortable enough that I do drag now. And I'd love to, I got to ask the girls to send me a clip. Like they got to record the class and send it to me because I'm not one of the girls anymore. So I think like, right, specifically as trans men, we end up in that where there were more resources in ways or like more spaces to encourage care as women than there is for even cis men. And specifically as trans men, we're definitely left without that at all.
Love it. Thank you so much. And I love that you highlighted, and I see this in the comments too, intersectionality, right? When we get down to it, almost before our transness is our blackness, is anti-whiteness, is the patriarchy, right? That has created a system that doesn't accept trans identity, right? If it weren't for these underlying systems, the experience of trans individuals would have probably been a much more welcoming experience. But because we have these layers of our society, it's created the friction that we experience. And then also, I think there's a lot that we also talk about in our community too. Just because we belong to the LGBTQ plus doesn't mean our community fully embraces us, right? And so what that experience is like. So even going, and I like that you brought this up too, because it reminds me, sometimes we think, well, trans men, don't you just go to the LGBT center to get your care, right? And how often are those centers not trained to be culturally responsive to trans men, right? Or their programming is trans men and trans women, as if those two communities were somehow the same community, right? So I think there's, even within our community, a lot of training that can be done when it comes to our specific identities. Any feelings, thoughts come up with those comments? So I'd like to lean a little bit into kind of my area of expertise, which has to do with HIV and sexual health. How has sexual health care as it relates to HIV, what's that been like for you? And more, specifically, let's say accessing PrEP, for instance.
What's that, Anthony? What's that?
I'm glad that you asked.
Like, what's that?
Yeah.
But I
So,
mean,
yes,
therein lies the
about-
problem, right? Yeah, therein lies the problem. I'm kind of speaking to the problem is that it's not offered to us, right? If you don't come in, again, we go back to have us having to be the trainer, right? Like if you don't come in knowing the knowledge, knowing what you need and advocating for yourself in that moment, physicians are not asking the right questions. They are painting us out. Not all physicians. Let me say that most physicians are not asking the right questions. They're painting us all with the same broad stroke that we're all living this binary way, that we all have these goals, certain goals around surgery or certain goals around reproductive care and all of these things. So we come in and there's all these preconceived notions about who we are before we even get to our appointments, so there's often not a safe enough space created so I can talk about my sexual health, so I can talk about those that I am romantically involved in, and what my, I don't even want to say risk, but because that is, the language that we so often use in HIV care, I don't have the space to talk about my risk or my reasons for who I'm attracted to or the type of sex or behavior that I engage in. So if I'm not feeling safe to even have those conversations, then we can't get to PEP and PrEP. And then let's take it one step further. Physicians are also don't know how to prescribe. Some, again, physicians don't know how to prescribe assigned female at birth individuals PrEP. They don't know when the effectiveness is. They don't know all of these things. So it's more education around it. It's more than one form of PrEP and PEP. They don't know what form to give assigned. And these are things physicians have let come out of their mouths. Let's be clear. That I don't know. I don't know how to prescribe this. So where am I left at? What am I left with? You know, and then let's talk about data and research too as well. Let's hit on that really quickly because that could be a whole nother panel by itself, right? There are now finally, because so the squeaky wheel gets the most noise. So a lot of us have been very squeaky these past few years to try to drive some research and data. So there are I think one or two organizations that are, you know, doing trying to do some PrEP and PrEP research. But outside of that, one versus how much research and data we see for trans women in MSM. There's so much, but we got one group of people that are trying to do research and data around PrEP and PEP for trans men. There's another issue because what we're going to hear is there's no data. You know, we have to be informed by the data and for the research. Well, nobody is spearheading this work, you know, so here we go again. We need to get back. We need to get some more data. We need to make sure that trans masculine folks and trans men, assigned female at birth people, no matter where they are on their transition journey, be it medically, socially, no matter where they are, can talk about sexual health, can talk about our needs around PEP and PrEP, so that physicians feel more comfortable with prescribing us the medicine that we need.
And I want to piggyback off of what Sai said. On top of that, we got to take the taboo out of the sexual health conversation within our community. Like, I think that it's very hard for us to have data and very hard for them to have studies and very hard for them to have the knowledge if we scared to sit here and talk about who we're intimate with and what makes us feel good amongst each other, right? I see a lot of shaming within the trans masculine community ourselves. We judge people based off of what they like. We judge people based off of their sexual fulfillment. We judge people out of just being themselves, and we forget why we all started this journey. We all started this journey to live our truth. And truth doesn't look like the next person's truth. And what makes the next person feel good sexually might not make you feel good sexually, but that doesn't give you the space to judge this person or isolate this person or demasculinize this person based off of what they enjoy.
Ooh, we having a sermon up in here. A lot of preaching. I love it. I love it. A lot of truth coming out because it's really what you're getting to is the diversity of sexual expression, right? And that we all have it. I remember a quote, what straight and gay or LGBTQ people do in bed is exactly the same. Everything else is different, right? Like we have the same type of sex. We use the same type of whatever anatomy we have. We use it in a variety of different ways, right? But I think so much richness has come up here with training, with understanding, with compassion, with not making assumptions, right? I think there's a lot of assumption making that happens in medicine, especially around providers. I think that whole idea too, the patriarchy comes in. If you've transitioned to be a man, then that means you're having sex in one particular way with one particular person. Otherwise, why did you transition, right? Like there's this idea of how you should be having sex if you're a man, right? And so I think there's a lot to train, a lot to combat. And then for even within our community, how do we then reinforce that stigma amongst each other, right? And we have hierarchies. I know we have hierarchies of if you're a man that does this type of sex, you're considered more masculine than if you're a man who does this type of sex, right? And so I think how that can be really harmful to our health. So if we narrow it just a little bit more, really around your own experience or inside, I love that whole idea. First, it starts with education about what is PrEP, right? Because you aren't even told about it if you don't quote unquote meet that risk profile. And so how did you learn about it? Sai, do you want to tell us what PrEP is? Sound like you're kind of knowledgeable about it.
I'm a little knowledgeable, yeah.
Let's start with the definition.
So PrEP is, am I still on? I think my screen darkened out, so make sure y'all can still hear me.
Yeah, you're still on.
Okay, perfect. So PrEP is pre-exposure prophylactic medication. It's a medication that you take each and every day to prevent HIV, right? So what happens with I just had a whole brain fart there. I'm sorry. So generally the experience for transmasculine folks, as we talked about risk factors, we come in and you go into your physician's office and you're given this list of check boxes, right? That you check off of your behaviors, right? And if you don't check the right boxes, then you are then determined not eligible for PrEP, right? Because again, the idea is that transmasculine or trans men have sex one way, right? Or having sex with one type of partner. So I think part of this is we talked about the community piece. A part of this is for us to continue to have these conversations within community so we can change the narrative, right? So we can talk about how we are not monolithic, how we are a diverse people and all of us have many amazing different parts of us that are not just to be painted in one color, So I think the education piece has to come along right after that for our physicians and our sexual health providers and all of those folks to make sure that access is also allowed for transmasculine folks. I should be able to go into the doctor and tell them what I need to take care of myself. Bottom line. Any human being should be able to do that. So again, a lot of us, there is that lack of education piece. They don't even think, our physicians don't even think to talk to us about our sexual health or reproductive health. I know there's another panel coming up around that, but our physicians sometimes don't even think to talk to us about what our experiences are, even what our goals are. Like this is not even a conversation I know for sure a lot of physicians have before we even start our medical journey. Right? Before we even start taking testosterone, we don't talk about our sexual health. We don't talk about our reproductive health or our goals, because half of it, yes, we're excited to come in and we're about to start this process. We're about to start all of that, and that excitement is there. And we're forgetting about the holistic care, like that 360 wraparound of care, and not just because a lot of us, hormone replacement therapy is not our only goal. And for some of us, hormone replacement therapy is not even in the list of things that we can medically even do, but our transition is still valid, So again, there's a lot of things that come into play, but it's just that holistic care piece that our physicians are missing out on.
Thank you, Sai. Any other panelists want to jump in? And I do want to highlight, Sai, thank you for that definition. Yes, PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis for HIV. One of the qualifications, so to speak, is to be HIV negative, right? So it is a medication that one takes to prevent HIV acquisition. And so it's important that someone is negative before taking. And then often it requires continual testing to ensure that someone continues to be negative while they are on PrEP, because PrEP is not a complete medication for HIV. So if someone is living with HIV, they would want to be on something that is considered a complete HIV medication. But I also think, Sai, that you brought up that sort of profile of asking and being inquisitive as to what type of sex that an individual wants to engage in. And someone believes that, well, if you have a front hole, that means that's how you're engaging in sexual activity, which is not always the case, right? Or you may not always be engaging in that type of sexual activity. Or, what's the experience of having sex? What kind of sex would you like to have? Maybe you're having a particular type of sex, but you'd like to have another type of sex, right? So the type of sex I'm having today may not be the type of sex that I'm really desiring. So I think those conversations, and I think it broadens that to, our culture's stigma around sex, period, right? And then you start talking about the individual types of sex, then it becomes different layers of stigma. So we've mentioned a lot. We've talked a little bit about resources. We've talked a little bit about stigma, the necessity for, engaging in proactive education, not reactive education. No one wants us to be brought in for damage control. It also speaks to the fact that how valuable do you think we are if you're only bringing us reactively, right? Any other, like when we think about sexual health, any other thoughts or comments that come to mind when this topic was presented to you? What were you hoping that we would be discussing today?
I don't know. For me, Anthony, I think part of it is like demystifying, right? Having the necessary conversation, right? True enough, we are on a national platform, so to speak. So I know there's some kind of holding back from all of us, right? Because we know that this is a sensitive conversation that we need to have amongst those of us who identify this way too, and then also decide kind of collectively how we want to have this conversation kind of with stakeholders, with stakeholders in our community, be it physicians or the pharmaceutical world, whatever that looks like, right? So I think that part of it, for the most part, as much as we can, is demystifying what this is, taking the taboo away from it, let folks know that trans men and transmasculine folks identify all along the sexual identity gamut, and we should be and our sexual health has to be taken care of as well in that way, no matter what parts we have or don't have or do, all of those things, right? Whatever we have has to be taken care of. And that's our goal, right? Is to alleviate those barriers, to make these conversations just that much more less sensitive, rather, so that we can actually have those. Because a part of it is feeling safe, right? Going into our physicians' offices or sexual health providers' offices and feeling represented, like making sure that you have trans men on your staff at these sexual health clinics that can, if more than anything, can be the direct advocate for other transmasculine folks. Make sure we're represented in your staff, and then also make sure you're also providing that safe environment for us to come in and be able to leave all of this stuff. Because a lot of us, and once we start to transition and start to feel very, safe in ourselves, or in our, feeling really good, or in our authenticity, and we are getting affirmed by cis men, and we get put in unfortunate situations. This is not a broad thing, right? This is just one example. And we already don't know how to talk to a community about how we're feeling, because this may be in direct contrast to our sexual identity prior to transition. So there's a taboo there, right? So we're already battling with that. And then having to come into my doctor's office looking to be my responsible self and take care of my sexual health. And now I don't feel safe with telling you, hey, doc, I no longer am having sexual relationships with cis women. I'm having sexual relationships now with men who have sex with men. So how do I protect myself? And this is what it looks like. If you have not created a safe environment for me to lay all of that out on the table, then I'm not going to. And then both of us are missing out on an opportunity, right? Missing out on an opportunity to take care of your patient, and for me to be able to take care of myself.
Beautifully said. Representation, education, responsiveness, also so very important. And I think we are good right now. We are now primed. We're going to start taking some Q&A from the audience. But before we do that, I think we may be going to a break. I see our MC coming back. Oh!
We the best music! Lane, what you was going to say?
I was going to say, do you want to say something?
Yes. Something for me, I think, I'm like, so many of the things I would have said have been said. I'm like, I've already had the same exact experiences, because there's like only 27 of us to have the same exact experience. I think something big for me is, like, similar to what Sebastian was saying, like, I can't go to a provider that I know is not going to be like sex working affirming, because it just has to do with like sexual health, right? And I know that having to deal with it within community, challenging homophobia within our own, like within trans community, within the queer community, I definitely don't want to have to go to a provider's office and now be shamed for me trying to be responsible or take responsible steps for my care. I think, as there being a whole nother thing specifically about reproductive health, me working and doing like advocacy around birth work, I think like there's not enough conversations around pregnancy and what that looks like for trans men, or like, yes, being in structures. I feel like I'm seeing more and more relationships of like trans men with husbands with kids who are deciding to carry, etc. And I think there just needs to be more of those options that are explored, along with, I feel like I know a lot of guys who would be more willing or interested in getting bottom surgery if it was something actually looked into. And that in and of itself is something that is not researched. Time is not dedicated to it. There's not enough people offering those services in the first place. And so when it's something that doesn't, right, it seems like it's accessible in a way, but it's still not affirming in the way it needs to be for so many of us. That's something that needs to be addressed, because right, that barrier shouldn't be what is stopping us from doing what we need to do to affirm our bodies and ourselves.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. I don't know where even to start. You all, the panel is amazing. What I heard and what I wrote down was representation, compensation, education, true safe space, affirmation, and responsiveness. Those are the words that I wrote down from the responses to the first three questions. We have so many more questions to come up on the panel, but we wanted just to take this break, man, to give you all that are watching the opportunity to participate. I see you all have been dropping your comments in the chat box. We appreciate that. I also see that some of you all had questions. Keep writing your questions in the comments. We have a Q&A coming up, and we want to make sure that we capture all of your questions, because this is a grown conversation. It is a grown conversation that is so necessary. I also want to remind you about a few more things. One, that Black Trans Joy Brunch is coming up, baby. It's coming up this Sunday, November the 20th at 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Chateau Remix, DC. If you are not familiar with the Black Trans Joy Brunch, I need you to be in the building on Sunday. We also have a Sips and Cigars coming up, baby. Sips and Cigars. It is coming up this Saturday on the 19th from 7 to 11 at the Costa's Rum Bar. Baby, all I'm saying is that sounds real sexy. And if you are a trans man or a trans part of the transmasculine community, show up. Show up and pack that Costa's Rum Bar, baby, so we could get it popping and smoke some cigars, okay? So right now, we're going to do a little dance break because I got ADHD real bad. And I know some of y'all can relate real quick. So I got to call in my Auntie Mary real quick. We're going to give y'all a chance to stretch, to drop some love right now for the panelists. We need you to invite your crew. We need you to share, because we're going into the second half, baby. Drop your comments, drop your posts, drop your thoughts. What is your thoughts right now as it relates to the trans men and masculine community as it relates to sexual health? We want to know your thoughts. We want to know your thoughts right now, baby. Aha! And guess what? Tomorrow, it goes down again. Tomorrow, it goes down again. Just in case you have not registered for tomorrow, the 16th, reproductive justice, baby. This panel is amazing. The panel for the whole week is amazing. If you missed any of it, we need for you to go over to Bonds, and we need for you to check them out right now over on YouTube. Go and follow and subscribe and like and share all of this content, because knowing is key so that these stigmas and these barriers can be left in place, baby. That's all I got to say. Anthony, is you ready? Anthony, is you ready?
I'm ready.
Woo! Hey, bring it, Kate. Hey, what's up, y'all? Hey, Anthony, you are killing it as the moderator. You killing it as the moderator. This panel, hey, Sai, hey, Lynn, hey, 2AM Ricky, y'all already know. Y'all got my heart. Y'all are doing the damn thing with sharing this information so transparently. so honestly from your lived experiences. And that is what this conference is about, of showing that affirmation, showing that resiliency, and allowing other folks who may not be as mature, as brave, or has much support as you all to know that it is possible. Anthony, I'm gonna hand it off back to you. I'm going back in the green room to eat the rest of the free snacks that Lee and Tyree got back here. So I'll be back on later on. You guys keep rocking out. I'll see you guys in a minute.
All right, we got a little groove going, got up and stretched a little bit. I want to move on to this one question because I think this is so important when it comes to talking to our community. What tips do you have for trans men and transmasculine folks navigating health and wellness located in areas lacking adequate providers? And please feel free to plug any resources or providers, but what kind of advice would you give out there?
They aren't going to bring the resources to you, so go get them for yourself. Meaning a lot of times we say, well, we don't know where we're going to find a trainer. I don't know anybody who can give us this education. I don't know who we could bring in. If they're not going to present it to you, ask for it. Like right now, you guys are looking at 4 different panelists. They have panels all throughout the week with at least 4 to 5 people. I mean, every day, y'all got at least 5 new people that you can take back to your communities. You can take back to your doctor's offices. You can take back to your schools. You can take to your jobs, because every corporation has to have diversity and inclusion, if y'all didn't know that. And take these things, take these people, take the people that you follow on social media, your brothers, and bring your community to where you are. We had to demand it. When it came to civil rights, they wasn't sitting there telling them, they didn't hose them down and they walked off and say, forget about it. They kept fighting. They kept going. They kept stepping. They kept marching. It's the same thing. We have to demand the change for ourselves because nobody's going to give it to us.
Amen, amen, amen. Anybody else? So for those trans brothers out there in our community, what advice do you have for them when it comes to navigating health and wellness in areas lacking in adequate providers?
Just backing up everything 2A and Ricky said, like, just want to get at a triple clap, right? Like, just we have to stand in our authentic selves and know that, that you're doing right, to try to access your own health care. And I think that's a part of it too. A lot of us this process is not for the faint of heart, right? You come to the realization of who you are. You decide to make action steps to live in your truth, be it take medical steps or not, with you transition with your family, so transition is just not medical, right? It's the social transition, it's the economic transition, it's all of these different things that are coming into play. So we get it, we understand. Those of us that are trans and have been through these processes understand that it is really hard, but just know that you're not wrong asking for adequate medical care. Like, you're not, it's guaranteed to you as a human being. So if you got to get it from your doctor, do so, and then bring community in, because there's some folks out here that will walk the concrete for you. Tap into community, bring community in when you need to talk to your doctor. Reach out to us. Then there's also, go to your insurance companies too, right? Anything that they send back to you, any care that they provide any other human being, by you being trans, does not deny you from getting that care as well. Yes, they will make us jump through hoops. Yes, there's other additional paperwork and all of these things. But community, there's organizations. This is when you hold our organizations, both community-based and national, hold them to their word and reach out to these organizations when you have these problems, so that we can come in and hold these people accountable. So we can talk to the insurance commissioners for you and make sure a lot of these things are in place to give you the word and the documents that you need to get things approved. Because I'm just being transparent. If we did not share these networks amongst us in the community, none of us would have health care. None of us would, right? And that's a lot of time, that's how we operate, is that I want to know if it's a service that I'm going out to receive, I'm gonna put out a request sometimes into the community and get a community poll. Hey, Lane, hey, 2A and Ricky, have y'all done this? What are y'all experienced with these types of doctors? So then I can know how to navigate myself. So we have to continue to do that amongst community, so we can make sure we're navigating our people in the right way. But again, I just want to instill in my people the courage to stand up for yourself, the courage to go in and push back against these systems, because the system is not broken, y'all. Do you hear me? The system is not broken. The system is created exactly the way it wanted, the way it was intended to be created, and it's to create barriers and to keep us away from everything we need to prosper in life, right? So we have to go around the system, and we will do just that. Please, y'all, just know that you are in the right to stand up for your health care and what you need.
Thank you. And one thing I heard that really, really resonates with me is ask for help, right? Like there is strength in asking. And I think you have advocates out there, you have organizations like Bonds that reach out, ask for that assistance, ask for that, peer experience. Don't feel like you have to do this alone. So thank you.
And let me say this really quick too, Anthony, too. And this is me speaking to community. When people reach out to you for help, realize that they too may have went through all of this emotional stuff before they came to you, y'all. And I know there's a culture amongst transmasculine folks where we will turn a blind eye or we'll get real ugly when people ask you for resources. And I know it can be a lot when you got 25 folks asking you for resources and then you're trying to see who's real and who's not and who's this. You cannot make that determination for anybody. If you have the resource, give them the resource, right? Or if you cannot help, say that you cannot help and send them to someone else. Like we have to work better as a community of folks, because if someone reaches out to you, you never know how many other people, and I'm being honest and real, gave them their ass to kiss before they got to you. So realize that as a community, y'all, we have to start working better amongst each other, because these systems are not created for us. And as we all have identified, if you don't stand up for yourself, you will not get what you need. So we have to work better internally with each other when our community members are reaching out for help.
Yeah, just to follow up with Sai, I was gonna say the same thing. We got to stop gatekeeping information. Like, I don't know what that is within the transmasculine community. We love to gatekeep information, almost like once you get a resource or you get your HRT or you get your doctor or you get this and that, like it's the golden class to mandem. And that's not what this is. Like, gatekeeping resources doesn't do anything but create a barrier between that person being able to live their life healthily. And it doesn't make you better than the next man or the next person transitioning because you got a resource or you got a doctor or you got a friend or you got an email or you got whatever you got that you're not wanting to give up. All you're doing is adding to the problem. All you're doing is making somebody else's health decline. And all you're doing is honestly, it's not making you a better man. It's showing how bad of you are of one, because you're willing to put your pride before somebody else's well-being.
Come on. All right. We're really getting it. And I think there's, what I'm really loving about this panel and what's coming up is putting to task. We got work to do externally and we got work to do internally, right? And so it's about how we're going to come together. And I love, Sai, that you put out, the system ain't broken. It's working the way it was made to work, right? So we got to dismantle, right, the system, or create a new system or work around the system. But if you find the system is failing you, it's because it was set up to fail you, right? Like you weren't in mind when the system was made. So I think so important, wise words, but it also should feel empowering, right? Like we've got to do something. And I think calling on our brothers to help us navigate that. And to Aim Ricky, I love that. Like, it doesn't make you a better man. It shows you what kind of man you are when you are not willing to help a fellow brother out. So thank you. We got some questions coming from the audience. I want to take one right now. And this one's for Lane. Someone's asking, can you clarify what you said earlier regarding lower surgery not being affirming as a barrier? And I think that question was around, and I think your comment was really around understanding and having more research around lower surgery. So maybe you could just sort of reframe that and dig a little bit more into it.
Yeah. I think mainly what I was just trying to get to is like, and what is being talked about right now is like the scarcity mindset, and that we're working with so little and trying to work from like an area of abundance, or like wanting to do more, wanting to have better, wanting to do better. And a lot of options for lower surgeries don't provide results that are as affirming as they could possibly be, or as people would like them to be when they get the procedure. So if I ideally in a real world, could do everything I wanted to do, it would be nice to not have like 10 surgeries to do so, or know that I'm going to be at a medical risk and have to have like multiple corrective surgeries, like knowing I can go into this space and there's enough research and dedication and intention in this work that I know I'm going to get the care that I want, and I'm going to also get the results I deserve.
Great. And for whoever asked that question, let us know if that clarified that for you, or if you want a little bit more follow-up. So another question's come through, and I feel like this came up a little bit in conversation, is as a trans man that prefers intimacy with cis men, how do you advocate for yourself when the doctors assume my partner is female?
I'll jump at that one. I think the first place is making sure you feel safe, right, at your doctor's office that you're going to for your sexual wellness, if it's different from your primary care doctor. And make sure you feel safe, because a part of feeling safe is being able to then have those uncomfortable conversations. This is just an I statement for me. My physician, I see a nurse practitioner. She is amazing, just amazing. I know I'm privileged in that way. So there's absolutely nothing that I'm not able to share with her, and then also be able to get the treatment that I need based upon how, what I share. So more of us need those opportunities. More of our physicians need to be trained so that they can provide more safe spaces. But part of it is first feeling like you're safe in that physician's office, so you can then dispel whatever their with those expectations they come in with, or whatever they think your sexual behaviors are. So I think it's, again, a part of just having that conversation with the doctor in a safe space, so then you can talk about your sexual partner, then y'all can talk about what your options are around your reproductive health, that you can talk about testosterone and reproductive health, because that's a conversation folks don't have. And there's a lot of myths around our testosterone use and our ability to get pregnant and all of those things that doctors don't really talk to us about. So to me, again, the start is making sure you feel safe in that physician's office, so that you can open up those conversations. And even the flip side of that, often what we don't look at is the experience our partners, or the folks that we are having sex with, are having as well, and what conversations are they having with their physicians about who their sexual partners are. For me, it's, again, as an I statement, my wife is a cis female, and every time she goes into the doctor's office, they have a pregnancy conversation. Now, her doctor is really clear, has been supposed to be clear about who I am, because I have allowed her to tell her doctor that, so that she can get the appropriate care that she needs, right? But for some reason, it blows over the physician head each and every time my wife goes in. So they have to have the whole pregnancy conversation. And I have to come out not even knowing that I'm being put out at a physician's office through my partner. So there's a lot of opportunities that we miss out on to make sure folks are being taken care of in the best way. Our partners are not being asked the correct questions. Neither are we being asked the correct questions. But basically, overall, just be in a safe space so that you can talk about the folks that you're having sex with, so that you can feel like you're getting the care that you need. If you're not, there are physicians out there who can take care of you in the way that you need. So don't be scared to fire a doctor. Just let me say that. Nobody be scared to fire your doctor, any doctor. Know that.
Thank you. And I think with that question, I know what comes up for me is that that intersectionality of identities once again, right? That as a trans man, you're going to experience transphobia. And then as a trans man who likes to have sex with other men, you're going to experience homophobia, right? And as a transmasculine man, you're also going to experience, toxic masculinity. And as you've got all these different layers that are going to intersect and that come in sometimes a way of healthcare, because you have to navigate that. You have to wade through the, pardon my language, bullshit, right? And really decipher that. And I think, Sai, absolutely, safe space. Where can you have those conversations? So in that vein, we have a question from someone in Ohio who says, I don't want to call any organizations out, but what they're looking for are transmasculine serving or led organizations that do work around sexual health. They've researched out too many organizations and got the runaround about help for PrEP access specifically. So they are asking y'all, do you know of organizations where they could go to for culturally responsive care as it is for transmasculine men?
I think the crickets is telling me problems is right.
What I was gonna say was it's not too many. It's not really too many. We're gonna be quite honest with you. And then I also was looking at that question when it popped up in the comments. They said they didn't want to call any organizations out, but they've gotten a runaround. So that lets me know that they're probably reaching out or have tried to reach out to some organizations that may be trans-led and haven't gotten feedback. For one, that goes back to my comment about gatekeeping, right? Not everyone that is in our community and are in places of leadership and power will use their power to the best of their abilities, right? What I say personally, I can't speak for no one else. One thing that I do is that when I'm pitching out my programming, when I'm going out and I'm trying to speak, or I'm trying to connect with people about resources, or I'm trying to educate people or get resources for PrEP or sexual awareness or mental health for trans men, what I do is I target organizations that might be queer-based or LGBTQ-based or even women-based, because there are going to be trans men that are going to come to these spaces. Going to be people of the trans experience who are going to be in these environments. And a lot of times, if they don't have someone to educate us on them topics, you put yourself as that person that can give that education. So what I would say is, if you can't find those resources, if you can't find organizations that are trans-led, or you're being kept out by people who are gatekeeping, forget them folks. It's like we got to learn when to just let stuff go, stop going in one direction and find another direction, right? There's GLAAD, if you literally look up LGBTQ conferences, queer conferences, Black queer conferences, right? You will find hundreds of them. If you look up different universities that have LGBTQ centers, you'll find hundreds of them. If y'all need a list, I got a list of over 300 people that I pitched to, right? Reach out to these people. Send emails to the directors. Send emails to the people over the diversity and inclusion. And not only provide them with information, but let them know that the same things that you're telling us, there are no resources for you. How do we access this? How do I get this information? And again, put that demand on those people.
Love it, right? And I think that's one of the things too. When we are trailblazers, when we are really fighting, a lot is asked of our community, and that goes for any group that has been marginalized or oppressed. In order for us, many of us here on the screen are reaping a lot of benefits from our forebears, right? That did a lot of the work. Give it around race, give it around social class, give it around whatever. And so sometimes we're called to take that and carry it forward in some of the work that y'all are talking about. And I do hear a great call out. I don't know if it exists, but if it doesn't, maybe this is a thing for Bonds or for someone on this call or something, is to create a directory, right? How do we create a directory? And I know those are difficult because as soon as you create it, it becomes outdated. right? But how do we, and 2 a.m. Ricky, I love that. How do we take maybe some of these organizations to task and say, if you really do care about our community, create a directory and keep it updated, right? So I think there's some opportunity for
Yes. If I may add, I think, as it has also been mentioned, like I think so much of our answers to things are going to be found in community networks, because I think there's so many of us who are advocates, who do meaningful work, who have good information, who are not a part of these organizations, and they might not be a part of these organizations intentionally as well. So I think like we struggle when we have flagships like statewide organizations that we also know hundreds of other trans people or queer people are going to. It is super easy for us, specifically like Black trans men, to be dropped in between the cracks. So I think being really intentional about building community and connecting with other folks in your area as much as possible, whether that's like, you know, maybe not getting healthcare from the Queer Center, but finding out about a trans masculine support group or space that you can go to connect with community and ask the real questions. Because, right, we can get the list of doctors who do trans stuff, but the guys on the ground are going to know, like, don't go to those 3 doctors because they're atrocious.
Yep.
Yeah, and if I could just add on to what both my co-panelists have already said, which I 100% agree, is just holding these organizations and community to task, right? And then even I just want to be clear that any service provider that provides PrEP or PEP or PrEP or any HIV treatment should also be providing it to trans masculine folks as well. No matter what their moniker is, even if it's a men's health clinic, whatever their moniker is, if they're providing this particular service, just know that they absolutely have to and should be providing it to trans masculine folks as well. So I want to be clear about that. So your AHFs, your Gileads, your V's, all of these folks, they should be providing, and that's what we're pushing, right, to make sure that they can provide these resources to trans masculine folks as well. And I think that's part of it too, is holding these folks' feet to the fire, especially our pharmaceutical group, because they're quick to pay for us all to go to a conference to sit at some dinner that really is not going to end in actionable results, right? They all want to have 3 trans men for their quota, because you got 50 trans women. In order to make it equal, you need to get 3 trans men. Like, we have all of these different experiences, right? So we have to continue inserting ourselves, because we can get dropped in the crack. We can get overlooked because of trans women's issues that may come up more often than us, right? So we have to, again, continue to insert ourselves in those conversations, continue to show up in those spaces when we need the service as well, because if they're providing it, they should also provide it to us as well. So ViiV, AHF, Gilead, all of them, I can just call them out. Make sure that they know that we deserve to be in this space too.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, do not be afraid to call those out who have in their mission statement to help trans individuals. And by trans individuals, it should be the whole trans community, right? Not just your favorite trans person. So to that degree, I've got a little bit of, we brought up another identity being trans women. So a question came up, what do we do when trans women are some of the folks standing in the way of our access or gatekeeping us without creating a divide in the trans community? How do we work within our own trans community when we experience trans women sometimes being the barrier without being divisive?
I think that's something that's particularly hard, because like division is such a subjective thing, and sometimes when you hold someone accountable, that they see that as division, and we know that accountability is part of care and is not anything that's meant to attack, but is something that we do because we care for each other. I also think that because we're in networks together, some people are closer to others, and I think sometimes like when a conversation needs to be had with one of the women, some of the best people to have that conversation with her are some of the other women who are allies to us as men and masculine folks who want to hold her accountable, or hold trans spaces accountable for not also accessing our needs. And I think it can be hard because the first step is being honest in the fact that, a trans woman may be someone who is causing a barrier to the care that you're accessing. And that in itself can be a very hard conversation to even have in trans spaces for a number of reasons. I think specifically as Black trans men, that comes up when there are inner community issues, specifically with Black trans women, and what accountability looks like, and how sometimes people will use, you are trying to do accountability, but it can be flipped as toxic masculinity, or however it wants to be painted. It is something that takes time and does have to be tread carefully, but should absolutely be done with a team, with community, with other people who care for you and care for the issue.
I think that it also goes to just asserting our importance within community as well. I think someone said a lot of times when people think of the trans community, we're often not even thought of. They only think of trans women. We're not even a thought. And so sometimes within the trans community ourselves, trans women kind of give us that energy too. We're not the first thought. We're not the first ones that if we have a death, if we have a rape, if we have anything, we're not the first one hitting the news, because they're probably not even going to identify us the right way, the same way they might do them, to even publicize this type of information for us. I think it's very important for us to bring understanding to the community that although we're one family, we're very different. A trans masculine person's journey and a trans feminine person's journey is not the same. It's literally like being brother and sister. We live in the same house. Mama and daddy about to treat us a little bit different. You know what I mean? And I think that once we bring that type of conversation and that understanding to the community, that we might be able to start tiptoeing around some of those taboo conversations. Because I think that one statement in itself is something that we all think, but we be scared to say it. You know what I mean? Because we're always treated as one. We're always treated as one big melting pot. When they think of trans, we all supposed to wave one flag. You feel what I'm saying? And we forget to even speak up for ourselves and speak up for the difference in ourselves, and not be afraid to tell our sisters, hey, we love you, we care about you, but we matter just as much.
All very beautifully said. And I think intentionality, the messaging, strategy, look to see who's the best messenger for some of this, what we call feedback, right? And I think at the end, realizing that these are our sisters, but we also need to hold everybody accountable, right? And how do we do that in a loving, constructive, because the last thing we need to do is beat ourselves down. So thank you. And I think it's complex, and I think you did a great job of articulating the nuance of the complexity. So I appreciate that. We are getting to time, believe it or not. We only have 8 minutes left in our hour-and-a-half segment. Y'all have been amazing panelists. I have grown, I have learned. I feel more connected to you. I wish we were in person and could all go out for a drink, adult beverage or tea, whatever y'all's preference is. But I want to give you a chance to give us a closing thought. I want you to share what you would like the audience to take away from this session today. If you can just take a moment, take a minute or two, and leave us with that gem, or those parting words that you want our audience to take away with them.
I guess I'll go first. I think for me, there's many parting words I could think of right now, but the main thing that's coming up for me is just continue to have the conversations, right? Let's continue to unlift the veil. Let's continue to talk about the hard stuff, right? Because it's going to make it easier for us in the long run, and it's also going to make it easier for the folks that are coming behind us, for those of us that care about that particular thing. You know, I think that because I stated on another panel that we are no stronger than our weakest member. So always keep that in mind, that we are no stronger, any of us, no matter what organization you sit on, no matter who you're the executive director of, we are no stronger than our weakest member. So that indigenous guy that's over somewhere on a tribe that has never met another trans man in his life, but knows that this is who he is, and he wants to continue to access every service he needs so he can have as successful as a transition, whatever that means to you, to that particular guy, so he can have that. He is no stronger or no weaker than me or any of us sitting here today. So let's be realistic about what our community looks like, how colorful we are, how different we are, and diverse we are, and be able to stand stand in our authentic self like we have already done. Just know that you've taken the first step anyway. If you decide to live your truth, whatever that is, decide to take medical steps, whatever that is, you've already conquered so much, and you are extremely brave. So continue to have these conversations. Let's continue to be as open books as we can, so that we can help other guys and have these very needed conversations, so they don't feel any kind of way about their sexual health or their sexual partners or any of those things. So I could keep going. So that's all I have for now. But I'm just so thankful to be in this space, to be having this conversation, to start what I hope many conversations about this particular subject, and being in space with both Lane and 2 a.m. Ricky. You know, you all have been amazing today. So I hope we continue to do this. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you, Sai. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'm like, you'd think with the extra time I would know what I want to say as parting words, but not really. I think like so many things have come up throughout this, but something that really sticks with me is like, if you can't find it, look elsewhere or make it yourself. You're definitely not alone. So as much as we like to think we have original thoughts, someone else has probably thought it, someone else is probably thinking it. They're just also looking for a place to connect. So even if it feels like there might not be something in your physical location, I'd encourage you to connect with other folks in community online, folks in other states, because you never know who is resourced with what capacity folks have, and always continue to create space for growing relationships, especially with other transmasculine folks, because we need more brothers loving on brothers and uplifting each other.
Yes, brothers loving on brothers. You're speaking my language. 2 a.m. Ricky, take us home.
I would say that one of the most important things I just hope everyone takes away is that your health matters, and every boy deserves the bus. So don't feel bad about your sexual experiences and what makes you feel good. You know what I mean? I think one thing that everybody brought up in the comments and conversation is, where do we find resources, right? And everyone who tuned into this panel now made a new resource, now made a new friend, now gained new information. Make sure you follow everyone. Make sure you soak up the information that everybody's building and everyone's dropping. Make sure that you reach out if you have questions. I know that Sai has a lot of resources and organizations. You know, Lee has different organizations. Lane has different resources. Anthony has resources. If y'all follow me, y'all know I speak. Y'all know I do Black Boy Therapy every week, which is literally nothing but mental health issues for the transmasculine community. So find your community, find your people, and just understand that you're not alone in this journey.
Thank you, Tim, Ricky. And I love that we're leaving on that note. You're not alone. And I want to personally thank Lee for ensuring that spaces like this exist, that our community is hearing the voices of our community, and that together we will heal. And we will make this world a better, brighter, more enthusiastic, diverse place. And it's because of each and every one of you. So thank you, Lee. I'll let you close us out. Oh, I think you're on mute.
You're on mute, Dar.
There you is.
You would think by now I would know how this works, right? But first and foremost, just thank y'all. Thank you, Anthony, for great moderation. And thank you to our panelists, Lane, 2 a.m., and Sebastian, for just really coming in here and having this great conversation and interacting with our audience. And thank you for the audience that tuned in today. Once again, want to say a thank you to all of our sponsors that make events like this possible. And then also, y'all, tomorrow, we have a dope panel. Okay, we have reproductive justice and trans men and transmasculine communities. It's from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. featuring Dr. Kellen Baker, Jamel A. Ware, Maya Kennedy, and Terrell Blackmoss, moderated by Tyree Williams. And the thing that's interesting about this panel is yes, the panel is about trans men and transmasculine and reproductive health issues, but we're also going to address it too from folks that also advocate for trans men and transmasculine communities around reproductive justice, especially in the family sense. So that'll be a really great conversation. So I hope y'all tune in. Again, if you haven't gotten a ticket for Black Trans Joy Brunch or the Sips and Cigars, please do so. Also, for anyone who $30 for the ticket, if you're a trans man, transmasculine folks, and $30 for the ticket is the barrier, please inbox us, because we would rather have you than the $30. You know what I mean? Also, too, if Black Trans Joy Brunch, if you're a Black trans person, okay, Black trans person, however you identify on the trans spectrum, and that $50 is a barrier, just send us an email, because we got you too, because we want to see your face. All right. So thank you again, everyone. And T, you can go ahead and close us out, baby.
Y'all ready? Man, listen, what a show, what a panel, what a discussion. We had Sai say, no, you're no stronger than your weakest link, okay? Then Lane said, if you can't find it, guess what? Create it or connect with somebody that has it. The internet is big, baby. Connect to your community so that you can link in person and make that division less, right? Because silos is a thing. And I hear you all breaking down those barriers and sticking to those boundaries. Then we had 2 a.m. Ricky say, your health matters. Your health matters. Connection. Brothers loving each other. Boy, that touched my heart. As our good brother E. Lee Dyer IV said, today has been amazing. Completely amazing. It is my honor to have been your host today, baby. It's been my pleasure and my honor. Welcome to Team Nosy, because that's what I call my folks. So y'all bring y'all nosies asses over there and follow me on social media. The T. Pearson Experience, baby. We up out of here. Hey, Barnes. We had a good discussion today, and tomorrow is going down. We see y'all at 3. Hey, hit that share button too. We want more folks to hear, participate, learn, and advocate. You understand? Hit that share button. It's free, baby. And I see y'all tomorrow.